It's the morning after the night before, and we were close. So close. I am incredibly proud of that group of men last night, including the manager and his staff. And trust me, we have people worried right now. I've seen a lot of social media from our rivals' fans, and they are hiding their fear with laughter. I think everyone saw a glimpse last night that we are now structurally sound, organized, and beginning to coach and develop our exciting young squad in a way that is going to make us difficult to beat as well as exciting to watch. As hard as defeat is to take right now, this morning is a positive time to be a Spurs fan. Meanwhile, as Thomas Frank says himself, the squad does need improvement, and we're still pushing for Eza and Savinho, two players who would undoubtedly lift us to another level. But of course, Daniel Levy is in low ball mood as ever. I'll bring you all the latest transfer talk as well as my more considered thoughts on last night's game in today's episode. Guys, thank you so much for watching and listening wherever you are. Please do give this video a like on YouTube, press subscribe to the channel, and you can become a member. Only £1 a month helps me to make this daily content for you. All the ways how in the description box below. But let's start with the transfer rumours and what is going on with Eberechi Eza first of all. David Ornstein said last night neither Tottenham or Arsenal are currently prepared to pay the finances that Crystal Palace would be looking for at this moment to do the deal for Eza, which is around the release clause of £68 million. And he says unless that changes, then Eza will stay at Palace. Groundhog Day for Tottenham fans. We know what the money is. We know how it has to be paid out in terms of installments. There is money that needs to be paid to Eberechi Eza's former clubs. That needs to be paid up front and then the rest in a few installments. You can see why Arsenal are unwilling to pay it because they have numerous options in that kind of left-sided forward number 10 position. Tottenham don't have any options in that number 10 position at the moment, apart from maybe at a push, you'd say Mohamed Kudus, who, by the way, was absolutely outstanding last night. It feels to me like these two deals, Eza and Savinho, are ones where Daniel Levy has an opportunity to show the Spurs fans that he's going to just take that little bit more of a risk, bite the bullet, pay the 68 million. Yes, he's 27 years old and the sell-on value won't be there, but we did just get 20 million pounds for Son Heung-min, who's 33 years old. So it's not like we won't get anything for Eza if he has a good career at Spurs. I just think bite the bullet, but I'm not sure if it's going to happen. More reports suggested that Tottenham's current offer for Eza is significantly below Palace's evaluation. So as Ornstein said, and Palace have no intention to bring down their price significantly. More key discussions will take place today. Arsenal currently not involved in the Eza talks. And the conclusion of the saga will likely be within the next 48 hours, for better or worse. If that is the case, that will be because all those rumours of Eza's release clause running out on the 15th, the day before the first day of the Premier League season. This isn't a Mark Gay situation. Mark Gay, the captain of Crystal Palace, only has 1 year left on his deal, and he is currently playing hardball with both Crystal Palace and Liverpool by saying, I'm happy to stay for the next year and see out my contract and go on a free. And actually, Crystal Palace don't want him to go on a free, so they want Liverpool to give a bid that is acceptable to them, but Liverpool are not doing that. And in fact, yesterday they bought another centre-back instead, Leone, I think his name is. So that'll be interesting to see what happens with Gay, whether maybe Newcastle will come back in later in the window. Spurs, of course, have been rumoured with wanting another centre-back. And actually, after yesterday's performance, you can see why. Because if we're going to play that kind of hybrid three at the back, then we're only one injury away. Say a Kevin Danso or Van der Ven get injured, we're only one injury away from really having to use Ben Davies at this point. And I wouldn't be letting Vuskovic go on loan at any point soon either, that's for sure. According to Ornstein as well, he says that Spurs are looking at multiple candidates for the number 10 position, not just Eberechi Eza. And Fabrizio Romano says the story with Savinho and Tottenham remains absolutely valid. Spurs are in talks to sign Savinho from Man City, but City will not accept 50 million euros or 60 million euros. They want more. I think they want Tottenham to go up to maybe 65 million pounds for Savinho. And Daniel Levy probably, I'm guessing, is balking at the idea of making this young player, kind of 20 years old, 21 years old, the highest transfer fee paid for a player in Tottenham's history. But I think what Daniel Levy has to take into account is the way the inflation of Premier League signings, as well as the Premier League club to Premier League club tax. If you're going to get a player off Manchester City, you're going to have to pay that Premier League tax. It's going to be £10 million more than it would be, at least more than it would be if it was from a foreign club. So if we really want that player, and Thomas Frank wants that player, Levy, again, he's going to have to bite the bullet. He really is. Jack Gorn says that Tottenham stepping up their interest in Savinho, and we're going to go again. So I'm hoping that maybe that will happen today. But Romano says still no agreement for Savinho for Spurs as of now. The first bid was far from Man City's valuation. And according to Savinho's agent and some reports, Man City want 80 million euros to sell the player, which would be about 70 million pounds. I think if Spurs go up to 65, maybe even 60 with add-ons that take it over 70, they can get their man. But I'll finish this segment on transfers the way I started it. This is just a huge opportunity for Tottenham. Tottenham fans will have watched last night and thought, we have the spine, we have the exciting young squad to really push on this season, but we need a couple of bits of magic added to it. And Levy has spent what this summer so far? 55 on Kudus. All the talks that I've heard over the summer is that we want to spend, at least £200 million this summer, with maybe even another 100 million based on the sales that we get in. So we spent 55. Let's say we spent 60 plus Takai, right? And we've got in 25 or 20 for Sonny. I think just spend the money. I think honestly, I think go to Palace and say, we'll give you 65 million quid. And I think they'd have to accept that when the release clause is 68 million for Eze. And I think go to Manchester City and say, we'll give you 60 plus 10 and get those boys in. And don't let it go to the end of the window, because with Eze especially, I really think, and I did read a report on this saying that Arsenal have been put on notice by the agent saying he wants to go to Arsenal, but he will go to Spurs if Arsenal don't come in soon. Well, listen, I said it yesterday, I'll say it again. I'm not surprised that he would choose Arsenal over Spurs at this moment based on where they are in their project. They're going to be battling for the league for sure. But Tottenham have shown enough under Frank, I think, that with a little bit of magic dust, a couple of more players who can take the ball on the half turn, who want to drive at opponents, who glide the way that Eberechi Eze glides, we can make Eberechi Eze our main man along with Kudus in that team. And if he was watching last night, I think he'd think, I wouldn't mind playing for them. They're pretty sound and on the transition, pretty dangerous. So that's how I feel about it. Anyway, guys, before I go on to my thoughts on last night's game, a little more considered thoughts, please do press the like on this video if you haven't already. If you like my content, please do give me a subscribe, press the notification button. And also, just in the last couple of days of nominations for the Football Content Awards, if you like my daily content, guys, there's a link in the description box below. Go and give me a nomination for one of the 2 awards that I recommend in that description box. So as I said, I'm going to talk about the PSG game, be a little bit more considered. I did a late night, admittedly slightly drunken live stream for 20 minutes and talked about it then. I want to start by just saying that there were so many performances on the pitch of our players yesterday from our players, which showed that we have good players that when coached and developed tactically, they can really go up in our estimation. So the players I'm going to talk about particularly are Pat Matar and Richarlison, but I'm going to add Jed Spence in there as well, because we've all seen Jed Spence do well since he got his opportunity last year under Ange Postecoglou. But before that, I think we'd seen a few bits and bobs of performances where we're like, is he ever going to really do it? And then he had a bit of a dodgy game against Bayern Munich, but I'm definitely now accepting that was all down to jet lag for those players that day, because yesterday, to a man, they were all absolutely outstanding. And I just think Thomas Frank has done enough in 6 weeks with those players, and especially Sarr and Richarlison, to suddenly make us think, hold on, I don't think I would be being too outlandish to suggest that maybe at the beginning of the summer, there was a lot of the Spurs fan base who would be like, we could probably do without Pat Matar and Richarlison if we got good bids for them. And now I look at Pat Matar and think, especially in these kind of games, so think about all the Champions League games we're going to be playing away from home. They're going to have that are going to be difficult for us. He is an absolute engine in there, an absolute ball winner. And then Richarlison showed me hold-up play last night that I just haven't seen from him at Spurs before. And maybe that is a mix of Thomas Frank kind of talking to him, putting an arm around his shoulder, but also just a little bit of fitness coming Richarlison's way, having been, played a few preseason games on the spin while Solanke's been injured. And if I'm Thomas Frank this morning, I'm thinking, and maybe I don't have to throw Solanke straight back in against Burnley. Richarlison did a really good job. So I think in terms of the development of our players, very exciting green shoots last night. I thought Pedro Porro was defensively excellent yesterday. We've all talked for a couple of years now. Porro, amazing going forward, a brilliant crosser of the ball, unbelievable passer of diagonals, and can split open the defense and has a great shot on him. But yesterday, up against some of the most exciting attackers in the world, he barely put a foot wrong defensively. And look, I'll just say about our defensive line, if we can keep kind of the 6 defenders that we have fit, so as well as the back 4 yesterday, add on Danso and Ben Davis, as a kind of very much a backup. But if we can keep them fit, then we'll have a chance against anyone. They are difficult to play against. And one real positive is Mickey van der Ven, under the system, under Thomas Frank, not really having to sprint much anymore, just doing kind of clean, good defending. And it's the sprinting, he's got it in his locker, he can do it. But if we minimize the amount of sprinting he has to do, then those hamstrings will just get stronger and stronger. I was relieved and impressed by João Paulinho's performance last night. It was a real baptism of fire against Bayern Munich in that friendly last week. But yesterday, I thought he was excellent, positionally great. A couple of those kind of trademark slide-in tackles. And him and Rodrigo Bentancur, they really make a biting central midfield together, and really well suited to these kind of games that, like I said, we're going to have to face in the Champions League on the very least like 4 or 5 occasions this year. And that's really exciting. Now, what I think will be interesting is to see whether at home against Burnley, who are just going to kind of play deep block, shut up shop. They hardly conceded any goals all season last year. Thomas Frank talks about being adaptable. That's what he's all about. So you'd have to think he's not going to play Paulinho and Bentancur on Saturday. Or if he does, then Bentancur maybe will have a much freer role going forward, whereas yesterday seemed like a kind of double 6. Whereas if he plays them both at the weekend, maybe Bentancur will have a freer role. And he can get forward and he can be exciting in the final third. But I like the way they lined up together. I really enjoyed last night how involved Thomas Frank and his staff were on the sidelines. Matty Wells, both before, during and after the game, incredibly vocal on the sidelines. And he was involved in the huddle before the game. And Matty Wells was there last season under Ange. So it's really impressive to me that Thomas Frank has allowed him to have a voice. He doesn't feel threatened by him, the fact that he was with the last manager who won a trophy. And I think that is a good link between, the bonding that the club had, that the players had, the family element that the players had under Ange, and bring it forward under Thomas Frank. And listen, Ange was his own man, and Ange liked to be on the sidelines just staying quiet, but Thomas Frank is giving them instructions all the time. And frankly, I'm here for it. I think it's really good to see. I've just made a note here just to say kudos, kudos, kudos. I think he could be our next superstar, our next jewel in the crown. And I really think that Thomas Frank is the right manager for him. He fell out with Lopetegui at West Ham and never really dragged it back under Graham Potter. But Thomas Frank is clearly an excellent man manager, excellent communicator. And he knows with Kudus that we have an absolute warrior player. I said it again to my friend Joey. I was watching the game yesterday. He reminds me so much of Moussa Dembele, but almost like an attacking midfield Moussa Dembele. The way he powers people off the ball, a break of pace, can beat a man easily, but also he's happy to take the ball when there are 3 or 4 players around him, and he will just bounce them off his kind of backside and turn and find a player. He's exactly the kind of player who, as and when he loses the ball, which will happen sporadically, Spurs fans won't mind, because in the same game he will have beaten players 14 or 15 times and drawn opposition players to him to allow more space for others. I'm just so excited that we have that player. And, once again, please, can we keep him fit? Because he could be, like I said, a jewel in the crown. And also, if we can get Savinho and Eza alongside that player, we're not far off. When you think of it like that, and the back line, we're not far off. As I said, just before I go into some of the quotes from after the game, Burnley will be a different test on Saturday. We're going to need to be patient. I've looked up their results during pre-season. It's been pretty haphazard. As you'd expect, they haven't conceded a lot of goals, but they haven't scored hardly any goals either. I think they only had 1 win against Millwall, which might have been their first pre-season game, but they lost 1-0 at home to Lazio at the weekend. Look, they're going to want to shut up shop. But another thing that I liked last night that I think will really stand us in good stead for games where we're playing against deep blocks is the danger that we now pose from attacking set pieces. And listen, I was I basically gave a standing ovation when I saw Kevin Danso jogging over because he clearly won the long throw auditions. His long throw is absolutely effortless. And in games against teams like Burnley, where you're playing a low block and maybe it gets into the second half and you're struggling to find ways in and around the low block, not only do you need players like Kudus to unlock the door, but also sometimes you need to just get it in the box. And the corners that we take now and the long throw, that will help. And in those games, if you can get the first goal, then the opposition have to come out and then you can score against them. Okay, Thomas Frank said after the game, very proud of the players, of the club and the team. They gave everything. They're playing against one of the best teams in the world. 75, 80 minutes, they gave away nothing against a team with 4 players up front with incredible individual talent. He was asked if he'll be able to move on quickly from last night's defeat. He said, I have my rule for 24 hours. I can be disappointed for 24 hours. We want to compete in a lot of different tournaments. And if you want to do that, you need to be ready to do a quick turnaround and go again. I'll make sure the players are ready and come flying out on Saturday. I have a feeling that maybe Odebear will start on Saturday. And there'll just be a few little changes, a few little tweaks. Like I said, maybe it won't be the same central midfield. Although, of course, not exactly blessed with options, but maybe he'll bring in a Lucas Bergvall for one of those 2 defensive midfielders. Thomas Frank described yesterday's performance against Paris Saint-Germain as a special operation that he started planning the day after the defeat to Bayern. He said, in medical terms, the operation succeeded, but sadly, the patient died. I like that analogy. I totally understand it. The operation really did succeed. I don't think Paris Saint-Germain had a clue how to face Tottenham. So that first half, we were absolutely comfortable. And actually, after the game, their manager, Luis Enrique, was incredibly honest, and fair play to him for this. He said, Tottenham played a great match. They were stronger than us. I don't know if the outcome was fair, but that's how football is. Football can sometimes be unfair. Christian Romero, the captain, of course, announced yesterday as our captain. And you will have seen, I'm sure, on social media, he speaks English. It's like the magic day of Pochettino when he came into Spurs and suddenly he could speak English, where at Southampton he'd always need an interpreter. So I was really pleased to see QT given the armband, and there are some rumours that we are now working on a new contract for him. And I think nights like last night, I've talked about it all summer. I've said, give him the armband, give him the responsibility, and say to him, drag us there. And he very nearly dragged us there yesterday. I think that was his first defeat in a final, to be honest. I think tomorrow will give him enough to say to himself, maybe I should stay here a little bit longer and I could drag this club to exciting things. He said after the game, it hurts to lose like this, no doubt, but it will make us stronger as a team. We'll work and fight to relive these moments together. Thankful to all the fans for the incredible support on the road today. See you at home on Saturday, family. Congratulations to Paris Saint-Germain. Good lad, good lad. And then, of course, finally, but by no means, last but by no means not least, I'm sure you all saw that Matthias Tell, after missing his penalty yesterday, was bombarded with absolutely sickening racist abuse. There's really no excuse for it. And if it is Spurs fans doing it, I mean, whoever it is doing it, it's absolutely abhorrent. But if it's Spurs fans doing it as well against a young talent who, comes on as a substitute, just trying to help out, hasn't got many minutes in his legs and then is brave enough to take a penalty, absolutely sickening. And Tottenham have released an official club statement this morning saying, we're disgusted at the racial abuse that Matthias Tell has received on social media following last night's UEFA Super Cup defeat. Matthias showed bravery and courage to step forward and take a penalty, yet those who abuse him are nothing but cowards, hiding behind anonymous usernames and profiles to spout their abhorrent views. We will work with the authorities and social media platforms to take the strongest possible action against any individual we are able to identify. We stand with you, Matthias. But Spurs often get things wrong optically, I find, but that is absolutely perfect from them. They've taken an incredibly strong stance, and rightly so. And just before I leave, Palhinha also did an Instagram post. I said how impressed I was with him yesterday. He said, I think it's the beginning of a journey together. Tottenham is a great club and has all the conditions to achieve big things. It showed in the past, and for sure it will show again in the future. I share the dressing room with top players as well. We have a top coach who's a great human being. And I think we have all the conditions together to achieve big things. We just need to be together and keep fighting. And I'm telling you, if we can get a good result against Burnley, put in a performance that make the crowd happy, and get that stadium dancing again like it was at the beginning of Ange's reign, then I think Frank has the pragmatism and the adaptability to get us really competing in some of those big games as well as the smaller games. All right, guys, I know it hurts this morning, but thank you so much for watching. I hope that you can see some of the green shoots. Let me know what you thought of it all in the comments. Do press like on this video if you haven't already. Subscribe to the channel, and you can also come and listen on the podcast platforms, be that Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Just type in the Spurred On podcast and come and give me a follow or a subscribe and a rating. Try and enjoy your Thursday, guys. Come on, you Spurs.